March, it started up again, and it was about 2 in the morning, and I think Adam said, for fuck's sake, look, we always have this conversation, let's this weekend, let's try and come up with an idea, and if it's good, we'll go and do it. And if we don't come up with anything, then let's give up on this idea, put our heads down, focus on the jobs that we're kind of all meant to be doing. So that was the brief for the weekend, see if we could come up with a really good idea. We had one big thought, which was if we could come up with something that made people's lives a little bit easier and a little bit better, then people would want to buy the product, and we'd kind of really have something. There'd be a real opportunity. So it all got a bit innovations catalogue as we tried to think of all the problems we had in our lives and that we might be able to solve. And for some reason we decided that the biggest problem in any of our lives was running baths. That trying to get a bath to the right temperature and the right height was a real issue, and that if we fixed that, we would change the world and things would be really different. So the first idea we had that weekend was the electric bath, and we got quite excited about it for about 2 minutes, until kind of Adam realised that as the sales guy amongst the three of us, he was going to have to go around selling baths, and me as the engineer amongst the three of us was going to have to be the guy responsible for putting water and electricity together. And rather than being the guy or the little business that helped make people's lives a little bit better, we were probably going to start making people's lives a little bit shorter. So electric bath, idea number 1 out the window. Second idea was the fruit smoothie. The challenge we were all having in our lives was our kind of diet. We're all working quite hard. We were all kind of into the first few years in sort of real jobs, and on the way home from work, you kind of grab a pizza or a burger or a kebab or something in the kind of microwave, and there was nothing good in our diets. The only healthy stuff we were eating was kind of when you go home at the weekend and your sort of mum cooks you something up perhaps on a Sunday. And if we could get something that tasted nice and did you good, that would solve a real problem for us. And as we talked to all of our friends, that was something that would really work for them too. And this started getting kind of really quite exciting. And so from that idea in March, then it was kind of evenings and weekends of trying to kind of hatch the business plan. How would we do all of this? And so we were still kind of in our main jobs, but trying to find every moment we could to put the business together. This kind of had to come to an end. I was working for a Bain & Company at the time, in their kind of offices on the Strand, and I was working on an insurance project, and I was finding it increasingly hard to explain while I was speaking to all these fruit and veg guys, having meetings with them in the company's meeting room. So it got to the point that we were going to kind of have to declare our hand and resign from our companies and go for this kind of full time. And suddenly this is the kind of moment where it gets serious. You've been dancing around with your friends, kind of evenings and weekends, kind of putting together this dream, and at some point you've got to kind of commit, and this was our sort of commit point. And we thought, right, so what we're going to do is some really big, good market research on this. Me being a consultant, I wanted kind of clipboards and spreadsheets and kind of sample sizes. And, Rich said, well look, really there's only one question we need to know the answer to, and that's should we give up our jobs to make these smoothies. And that's how we kind of ended up at a little jazz festival in West London with our bins and our stall, and asking people to vote with the bins, and do you think we should give up our jobs to make these drinks? At the end of the weekend, slightly terrifyingly, everybody was saying, yes, go and resign, go and set up your smoothie business. There were quite a few bottles in no bin. Later transpired that kind of came from our parents who were trying to keep us in our good blue chip careers, but we kind of looked each other in the eye on Sunday and said, right, that's it, we're resigning, we're going for this, this is what it's all about. Into work on Monday, slightly apprehensive about resigning, still convinced that maybe my mates have engineered the whole thing as a huge stitch-up, and when I ring them and say I've resigned, they'll go, ha, we got you. But fortunately that evening we'd all kind of done it, and we all kind of leapt in both feet together. That was August of '98. We thought, great, we've sold this stuff at the Jazz Festival, we'll be up and running in weeks and months. It kind of turns out that kind of pulling something off once is very different to doing it day in, day out. Everyone can kind of throw a party for sort of one night, but if you had to do it every single night, it's a completely different task. And over the next 6 to 9 months, we were, I guess, trying to sort out all sorts of problems. A big one was raising money. Nobody wanted to come near us. We were 3 guys who had no experience in the industry. We worked a bit with Virgin on Cola, but that was about as good as it got. We were up against Pepsi and Coke. We were going to be trying to sell into people like Tesco's and Sainsbury's and Asda. Porter's Five Forces is all looking pretty terrible at this point. I guess a big thing from all the investors was that between the three of us, we couldn't even pick a leader. We were kind of saying, no, the three of us are joint chief executives. That's how we're going to make decisions. So none of the banks would touch us, none of the venture capitalists, none of the business angel groups, and actually of all the things that was the biggest barrier to us getting going, it was getting that funding in place. So, final straw, send out an email to everybody you know saying, do you know anybody rich? And a guy I used to work with called David emailed back and said, I know this chap called Morris, and I think Morris will like you guys, and he's quite rich. And we went and saw Morris and gave him our pitch, and he said, I don't know about the idea, but I like you guys, and if you three are prepared to throw it all in and do this thing, I don't really understand it, but I'm in with my business partners for the trip too. What he only told us a few years later was that actually he had then gone to his business partners and said, look, I found this business opportunity, I think we should invest. And they refused point blank. They said, you're absolutely mad, you shouldn't go anywhere near this. And so he had to kind of come in on his own and kind of honour his word. And that was sort of 10 years ago. He's been our sort of business angel and investor ever since. So kind of some hairy moments, and the thing that got us, I guess, the biggest hurdle we had to overcome. 10 years on, we've got all sorts of products. We started with our 3-dot smoothies in the bottles you've got top left. We've got our thickies, which are dairy drinks. We've got our dishwater brand. We've got wedges and squeezies for kids. We've got our smoothies in cartons. And most recently, our veg pods, which is, I guess, 3 portions of veg, tons of fibre, low calories, a kind of a whole healthy meal in a pot. Here's the kind of sales pitch. Smoothie, 2 portions of fruit, veg pot, 3 portions of veg. Your 5 a day done in one kind of tasty, convenient little meal. So all sorts of kind of products over the last 10 years. And also we've been quite busy pushing out into new countries. We started in West London and then expanded across London, and within 4 months was getting calls from Scotland and Ireland saying, look, we'd love to kind of stock your product too. And so within about 18 months we were trying to cover a lot of the UK, but pretty thinly. And in the last couple of years, our big focus has been trying to take what we've done in the UK and replicate that on the continent in Northern Europe. So now we're in 13 countries, often with little small startup sort of entrepreneurial operations, just like we started in the UK. Putting all of that together has meant we've generally, a few years it hasn't quite worked, but generally we've grown pretty quickly, and it's been a really exciting ride as we started from sort of 1999 in West London through the UK and onto the continent. As you can see in the numbers there, the recession, the credit crunch, call it what you will, definitely made life a little bit more challenging for a couple of years. But the great thing is we're now back on growth. It's a really exciting journey over the last 10 years. We've had successes. We've also had our kind of challenges. April last year, we went out to raise some money, and our brief to the advisor who was helping us raise the money, we said, look, this chap called Morris invested in us 10 years ago. He's been absolutely awesome. We see him once a quarter. He's hands off. He gives us advice, but he doesn't interfere with the way we want to run the business. And what we want is a bigger Morris. That's what we want you to find us. And we kicked off our search for investment, and the day we kicked it off was Monday, I'm trying to think, something of September, which was the Monday that Lehman's disappeared off the map. So if there was a day to go out and start trying to raise cash in the last 10 years, it definitely wasn't that day. And our advisor said to us, look guys, I know you want a bigger Pinto, but I would cast your net wide. This is going to be really challenging in the current economic climate, and we don't know where we're going to get funds from, so kind of let's cast the net wide and see where we get to. As we went through the process, it turned out that the company that stood, or the investor that stood head and shoulders above everyone else, turned out to be Coca Cola. Not what we were expecting when we started the process, but in terms of the investor that was going to tick all the boxes that we had about somebody who had a really long-term horizon, somebody who was not going to interfere with the way we ran the business, and someone who was going to give us help and ideas when we needed it. It turned out that Coke was the answer to those questions. So in April of last year, they put £30 million in